Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we are back after a long hiatus with a battle report. This time from the bridge of relatively new, Tier 7 Japanese light cruiser Omono. I am going to be honest, I have not wrapped my brain around these ships just yet, right? I think when Wargaming announced a Japanese light cruiser line, everybody was like, oh, hell yes, a line of 155 Mogamis, bring it on, please bring it on. But these ships are not that, are they? I mean, they kind of are. They have the Mogami reload, by which I mean that crazy, 13, 15 second, whatever it is, like you play Shimanto, which is one tier higher than this. And I think the reload is 15 seconds, which is comparable to Mogami. She has the same barrel count, but it's not the same gun. It's not the same gun. Mogami's 155mm guns have significantly better ballistics and shell characteristics than the overwhelming majority of these Japanese light cruisers. And as a result, for me at least, they're a very mixed bag. There are things to like about these ships, don't get me wrong. But there's less to like than I wanted there to be, I think. I was excited for this line when they announced it, and then the more I play it, kind of the more, mildly disappointed I am with it. Now, that's a really long-winded way of saying this is going to be an interesting game. And I guess what I'm trying to the reason I'm showcasing this game is to sort of highlight some of the things that I like about the line and some of the frustrations that I have with it. Now, we're going to highlight one of the frustrations very early. Here we are spawning into the south side of Two Brothers in a tier 6 through 8 game with a carrier on each side. Our carrier has done a really nice job of picking up this little enemy division of a Fiji and a Belfast that they're going to be super cheeky and they're going to go camp in the channel and try to be just jerks. Okay, fine. I get it. I'm good. So I'm sort of here, ready and waiting to accept this pitch. You know, I've got my catcher's glove up. Let's do this. Now, I'm doing a couple of things wrong. One is, as you can tell, I am perfectly flat broadside to at least one ship that is guaranteed to be firing AP at me at all times. The other thing that's gonna mess me up a little bit is that this ship does not, she doesn't handle all that well, does she? Right? The engine's not as responsive as I would like, and the rudder's not as responsive as I would like, and, well, I gift the Fiji at least one, if not two citadels right there, just for a little bit of cheap damage and a torpedo salvo that, of course, is meaningless. Now, both these ships have hydro. I am not expecting anything out of these torpedoes, and that's fine. But what the torpedoes do, well, they do two things. One is they keep these guys honest, in the sense of I can sit here and flip back and forth and every 45 seconds or so throw some torpedoes down that way and just make a right royal nuisance of myself. But the other thing they do is that they force these guys to stay bow in. Now, if they're going to keep moving down the channel, they're going to be doing that anyway. But if they want to sit there and farm somebody, they're going to have to do it. It's going to limit how much firepower they can bring to bear. The Belfast, of course, has very low detection. I think sub 9 kilometers, about 8 and change, 8.7, something like this. He outspots me on the surface by about 2 kilometers. He can come out of that smoke and still spot me. The Fiji is a little closer to my detection. I think he's just a smidge over 10. Now, the team, to their credit, has recognized that this little ridiculous, irritating play is occurring. And so the Arizona, to my port side, you see there over on the H line, H8 has come back. And my friendly Nebraska has basically set up camp in H4 with his guns looking at the channel and his planes at the ready. The Nebraska is going to be an interesting ship to watch this game, so keep his position in mind, and we'll come back to him in a minute. Team deployment looking pretty solid. We got a lot of ships over on the A flank. Doesn't look so good over on the D flank. Our friendly Albemarle has driven right into the cap directly in front of a Massachusetts, which if you know anything about Albemarle's armor scheme, you know that is going to end badly. The Massachusetts is closing in on our Cachalot, who is snuggled up to an island right in front of him. And I don't know about you, but guys, when I play a submarine, and I will not pretend that I am the smartest submarine player in the world, that is not where I want to be. Once again, I screw up. I give the Fiji a beautiful shot. He cleaves off even more of my HP. The Arizona speaks, and the Belfast dies. Now, that is a huge moment for us in this game, because the Belfast, of course, can spot for himself outside of the shared smoke with the radar. The Fiji has a much more difficult time of doing this. He's reliant on planes or his teammates to spot for him out of his smoke unless you close with his hydro. And so, yeah, the Fiji is going to spend a while there, but their little division is now going to be significantly less impactful just because we've taken the Belfast out. Massachusetts over in the decap has basically made his presence felt, wipes out the Albemarle, depth charges the cachalot, W key engaged, not even slowing down. And in 5 minutes into this game, 7 of the 24 ships in the match are now dead. Welcome to random battles in World of Warships. Now, Massachusetts is continuing to press. The Arizona off my port side here is going to kite him. That's the smart play, of course. And I'm going to kite him as well. Of course, I don't have any other play here. I've coughed up about 2/3 of my health through various misplays, trying to deal with these clowns in the channel. And so now I have to play a very, very cautious game. But the Massachusetts is going to do me a huge favor here over the next couple of minutes as we whittle him down. And that is, he is never once going to shoot at me. I was stunned by this, honestly. I'm stunned now watching this replay. I mean, Japanese cruisers in general are not the sturdiest ships. Zhao's armor scheme can handle, well, I mean, she can't tank 16-inch shells, but if you angle the ship, like, you know, she'll bounce them, of course. But these light cruisers are basically tissue paper with guns on them. If you shoot battleship caliber shells, I'll take Citadels at almost any angle those shells land, and he doesn't even pull the trigger at me. All right, well, hey, as Napoleon said, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake, right? Don't complain, just look the gift horse in the mouth. I'm able to farm some damage off this guy. One of the quirks of these guns is that, unlike the Germans, like most light cruisers in World of Warships, in order to get full pins on this guy's superstructure, I do have to invest 4 points in IFHE. That reduces my fire chance, but gives me a better damage chance on the shells as they go in, and I get more full pins that way. So it's more reliable damage and less damage over time. But the Ryujo gets some torpedoes in, the Arizona continues to kite, the Nebraska's guns are felt here, and finally the Massachusetts W key breaks by virtue of the fact that he is no longer with us in the game. 7.5 minutes in, 9 ships out of 24 are dead. I'm not sure what it is about World of Warships that seems to attract people who don't enjoy playing the game. They enjoy dying. They're really, really good at dying. I've never understood why that's a thing. But this game seems to attract people who are in a real big rush to die and not a real big rush to play the game. And I'm still baffled by this. One enemy ship still lurking around the decap. That is the enemy Harbin. There he is, spotted by rocket planes by the Ryujo. This is a really good spot, by the way, because there are now 2 battleships plus the New Orleans plus me available to throw shells at this guy. Even though the Harbin's AA is going to make mincemeat of these planes, I'm going to swap to the AP and dump some shells downrange. And right as he starts to get into the smoke, one or more of those battleships absolutely punish him. And I only need 1 overpen to take him off the board. I feel bad for that guy. I really do. I don't like Harbin. I think Harbin is a terrible ship. She's certainly one of the worst tech tree tier 8 cruisers that Wargaming's ever made. I don't understand it. They recently gave her a heal, which I suppose slightly improves the pain, slightly dulls the pain, but it's still not a ship that I would ever reach for in almost any circumstances. You know, you wanted that. I wanted that ship to be like a mini Smolensk in it, and it's just all a disappointment. The enemy sub is right up here in front of me. We didn't really know that until the carrier picked him up. If I'd been paying attention, smart guys watching the video a minute ago while I was gabbing might have noticed the pings going in on the Arizona. So, I mean, if I'd been paying attention, I would have known he was here. But we did manage to get an engine critical on that guy. He is leaking oil. That fuel leak is going to allow me to kind of get a sense of where he is, right as he's just inside the edge of my pathetically short-ranged anti-submarine planes. Apparently, I only need 1 depth charge, and, well, there's a kill. I'll take it. Somebody does bag the Arizona along the way. That's the Fiji finally picking up a kill back there in smoke. The sub and or the carrier planes must have been spotting for him. And so now things are starting to thin out. Over half the ships in the game are dead as we approach the 10-minute mark. But the decap in front of me appears to be wide open. The New Mexico, has retreated. He's headed back to his home cap. There's a Vladivostok sitting in the home cap. There is nothing in front of me. Well, I know exactly what to do with that. The opposing Ark Royal in chat there seems to not understand how Ark Royal works, in the sense of you drop a lot of bombs, but their fire chance is pretty kind of crappy, and they don't have a lot of penetration. So, I mean, you're not going to start a lot of fires with British bombs. I mean, you will start some, but you're not going to start nearly as many as you think you should, or you certainly as many as you want to. We've got a one-ship lead. Okay, I spoke too soon. We're now tied on ships, and within a couple points of each other here. Game still very even here as we're now firmly into the back half. I'm going to move up into the decap here and take some shots over this island. I'm taking advantage of the spotting provided by the Heinrich back there on the sea line to take some pot shots at this New Mexico. I'm rewarded with a fire, which he puts out immediately. Okay, well, that means that I can keep throwing shells in that general direction then. Maybe get lucky again in a moment. Now, right here, if I fired right through here, he would have a shot on me in the sense of I would be spotted through this gap. I'm going to wait just until the island edges back in, cuts line of sight, and then fire my next salvo. I'm going to play the same little game here with the Vladivostok. I've got 25 seconds to cap. There's a sticky fire on that New Mexico. I've got 25 seconds to cap, and I could take a really good shot here at the Vlad, but if you'll notice, he's looking for me. I wait until the island breaks line of sight. Then I'm going to finish up this cap and get the hell out of here. Still even on ships, but we're about to go up on caps, which will be nice to see here. That's going to allow us to build a small lead, and now that the cap is essentially done, I'm willing to take a bit of a risk and take an open water shot at the New Mexico. But the Vlad did something that I hadn't expected. He had his engines turned on. He was already moving up, looking for me. Well, that is irritating. Well, good news is I'm going to get narrow here and turn out and run for the 10 line. All of his shells are going to whiff. Stalin-blessed Soviet dispersion as the enemy Ark Royal decides he wants a piece. Okay. Now, one of the things about these Japanese light cruisers is that their AA is, I'd say, on paper it doesn't look amazing, but it's certainly well above average for a Japanese cruiser. They're covered in those 100mm guns that make up the nice long-range AA bubble of ships like Zhao and Akizuki and Harugamo. And when you push that defensive fire button, planes melt. They are quite lovely. Now, otherwise, not so much, but they do a decent job of killing planes, certainly down-tiered planes like this Ark Royal. And the Ark Royal, of course, I mean, Ark Royal is essentially a Tier 6 Kaga. He's running a ton of low-tier planes. So yeah, the AA will chew him up. A little bit of drama happening back in our home cap. Back at A, the opposing Fiji has moved in, getting charged by our New Orleans without hydro. New Orleans is going to proxy him in his smoke at like point-blank range and try to finish him off in the face and through the hail of torpedoes and whatever else. And between him and the Nebraska, they do finally manage to kill that Fiji. Took almost 15 minutes. Vlad is coming. He's coming back down here. He's going to try and come settle into the back and pick up that decap again. I'm going to throw some shells on him. Got a little island cover here where he can't spot me while my friendly carrier, is doing some good work spotting for me. Now, back over here on the 910 line. One of the things that I feel is a strong benefit of the Japanese light cruiser line are the torpedoes. Very much like the Pan-Asian cruisers, their long-range torpedoes have some real punch and can be incredibly impactful if you can get them to land. And that's a big if, right? And these are, I think, 13-kilometer torpedoes on a Mono here at Tier 7. That feels really nice, but, I mean, by the time it takes one of these torpedoes to travel 13 kilometers, a lot can happen. You can see that Vlad is already slowing down, and as it turns out, I overled that salvo. None of those are going to hit, and I'm going to continue retreating down the 9 line. My fear right now is I do not want the carrier to spot me and catch me in a position where the Vlad will be able to wipe me out quickly. The carrier, the Ark Royal, to his credit, is going to try exactly that. Note the rocket planes. He knows I'm over here. Lawdy he coming. He's going to try to find me, and I am not going to stand for this. As soon as I'm lit, push the defensive fire, focus up. These planes are going to melt like butter. All the flak. Not going to tolerate that, but it's enough for the Vlad to get off one salvo, and he's going to get at least one good full pen out of it. Now, the fact that I've just annihilated at least 2 full squadrons of this Ark Royal, he gets a little salty in chat. Guys, look, I've talked about this before. If you're playing an aircraft carrier and I shoot down a bunch of your planes, that means that I've invested in my anti-aircraft abilities. You need to just live with it. Okay? Like that's just the way it is. It's a math game. You drove through a bunch of flak with your slow planes, and I was able to smash them because I did something that allowed me to do that. I invested skill points or modules or something into it. Now, I'm busy typing here, which is why I haven't already turned around. My team, to their credit, the New Orleans and the Nebraska. Nebraska's going to move up now for the first time this game. It's taken him 15 minutes. He's camped our home cap. He's been impactful back there. He's going to move up, and together we're all going to have to put pressure on some of these last surviving ships. We have a 1-ship lead, but we're about to be down on board control. That New Mexico, who ran away from me at the D cap earlier, is now all the way over in the A cap on the other side of the map. My Ryujo is lurking down along the J line. You can barely see him at the bottom of your screen, and there are now 2 opposing ships right on the edge, northern edge of the D cap. That is the Vladivostok, my buddy, and the opposing Ark Royal, who I guess also my buddy, given the way that he's been sending me all this love. Now, the New Orleans is going to do the smart thing. He's going to play back. I don't like where he is at the moment because he's broadside. They can see him, but the Vlad, you can see, you caught a glimpse of it there. He took a shot at the Nebraska instead. But the Ark Royal is also going to struggle with the New Orleans' AA, like especially with those rocket planes. He might get some chip damage, but I mean, those rocket planes are not amazing to begin with, and the New Orleans AA is more than up to the task of slaughtering those guys. But what I'm really coming back for is the chance to kill this Ark Royal. The Nebraska has the Ark Royal lit on the surface. He's taken a very aggressive position, out of cover, right on the edge of the cap. And the Nebraska got a salvo into him right there. Took a chunk of his HP. He's right at the extreme edge of my range. I'm going to fire anyway, even though he's already started reversing. I'm kind of checking the flight of these shells. Unfortunately, not amazing. Really nothing to get excited about right there. But now that I'm finally going to get a little closer, we're going to close the range a bit. Now we can start putting some good damage into this guy. One of the things that I didn't really talk about at the time, but I don't know if you noticed, about 5-6 minutes of the game, I barely had any damage, right? I had less than 7,000 damage, and I coughed up a huge chunk of my HP. These Japanese cruisers really struggle to get damage quickly unless you're firing highly specific targets. In other words, ships that are covered in 32mm plating, like French battleships or British battleships, that sort of thing. Or you can land some good and impactful torpedo salvos. Or you just stay in the game long enough that the fires and things that you will eventually light if you throw enough shells will add up. At the end, this is not going to be an amazing damage total for me. I'm just not going to have a great damage total. I'm down tiered, and I've spent a lot of time kiting, but not many ships, other than that opposing Massachusetts, have, let's say, agreed to push closer and let me farm them for HP. So it's been a real challenge, to say the least. No eyes right now. Nebraska edges forward just a hair, just far enough again for me to catch the Ark Royal on the surface. And now we've got him, I think. He's well within my range. I'm going to put the torpedoes, my port torpedoes in the front of the island. I do not want the Vlad to think about moving up to get shots on me while I'm over here. This island is conveniently blocking me from any of the Vladivostok shells right now. And I'm just going to keep farming this Ark Royal. Now, we put some fires on this Ark Royal earlier. You have to remember that the way damage control works on a carrier, his damage control pops automatically, lasts for 90 seconds, but then it's down for a very long cooldown, which means all these little fires you're seeing me land here are hitting, each one of those is hitting for about 5 or 6% of his overall health pool. Right at the very end, the Nebraska's going to come in and quote-unquote steal that kill from me. I really don't care. I just want to make sure that guy goes off the board and we win the game, because this was a real back-and-forth tug-of-war battle right up until the very end. I've got some garbagey long-range shots here at the Vlad, but his deck armor's enough. He should be able to shrug most of this off, because by the time those shells have get to him, they don't have a lot of energy left. They're plunging fire right onto his deck, where it's mostly shatters, the occasional full pin through the superstructure. It's a slog. This game was a slog. Time ticking away. Nebraska does finally bomb the Vlad out, which makes sense. Those bombs hurt, and he was able to get them through it. So the Nebraska played, I remember thinking when I originally played this game about halfway through, I was like, man, this guy's too passive, like way too passive. And yet, it worked out. There's a part of me that wonders if perhaps I've been looking at the American hybrid battleships wrongly. You know, I like to think of the German cruiser line as like ships that are best in the back half of a game. Watching this result, there's a part of me that wonders if the American hybrid battleships are of a similar bent. A nice result though here. With all the modifiers and everything, about a little over 37,000 base, or quote unquote base XP, ship XP. Good for grinding, of course. 2,100 on the base. A lot of plane kills because, well, the Ark Royal thought he could hurt me, and pro tip, he couldn't. You see that Vlad and the Massachusetts that we fought are the kind of high scorers on their team. A lot of mistakes, I think, for them. Certainly that Belfast was a mistake. I have no idea what the San Diego did other than die. Of course, our Cachalot didn't do much better. A wide spread of damage, most of it coming off battleships, about not really getting much in fires, surprisingly. Well, I mean, 20,000 in fires, but I actually have a decent amount out of the main battery, which is nice to see. And, of course, a lot of AA damage because I had a lot of flak hit that game. So, yeah, that was a nice game. I'm not sure that I'm really sold on Omono. She's not a bad ship. I think this game proves that you can have good games in it, but, man, she is very fragile. You got to be very cautious with this ship. You have to play a very, very slow game. And just look for the right targets with the guns. And when you're bottom tier, finding the right targets for these guns is a real challenge. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed that. Wash your hands, be safe. I'll catch you next time.